Welcome to Consulting Talk Live. My name is Russell Pearson. This show is for consultants who run a business, and we answer your questions on the show. Now, today's going to be a little bit different. I will talk about a topic rather than answer a question. We've got plenty of questions, but something interesting happened this week, which I thought is worth mentioning because it has been a repetitive theme that I've noticed throughout my entire business career, and that's been 30 years doing what I do, over 20 years in this actual business itself. It's distractions. It's identifying that there are all sorts of opportunities out there that we can actually engage with, and how do we manage them? You know, as we become more successful, and that's what ends up happening as you move into that consulting seat. People reach out to you, and they have all these opportunities, and so I want to talk about how to manage those opportunities and what to do with them. If you haven't been here before, you can go to consultingquestions.com and you can leave a question for us. You can also put it in the chat and I can answer it live. So when you are on live, feel free to put it in to the chat. And if you're watching it in replay, you can always put a question there as well, because I can take that question, I can answer it in the next one. Or if it's something simple, I can actually answer it just by typing back into the chat too. So distractions. Now, what happened this week? So I went to a memorial called Anzac Day, and there was an Anzac Day dawn service. So the dawn on the 25th of April, there is a memorial. What do you call them? A memorial, and it's for soldiers who have been in conflicts past, Australian soldiers and New Zealand soldiers, and we remember them. Right, and it's the downing of the sun, and in the morning we remember them, lest we forget. I've been going there with my children for over 10 years now, and I've got a brother who is in the military, and I respect the armed forces and the defense forces, and it's a solemn moment, and we get about 10,000 people who come to this service, and we stand in silence in the dark and in the dawn, and this year, there was some heckling in the crowd, and there was some booing of certain cultural things that were added to the day, and so there was a welcome to country, which is it's a controversial piece when it comes to Australia. I know it's funny actually, like a lot of countries I speak to, because I'm working internationally with this consulting business. They look at Australia and there's a touch of, oh yeah, but they're racist, so which isn't great for us. But this is one of the examples of where this sort of comes in, where there's a welcome to country, and these people were booing it, and I was like, okay, I don't like the booing. I'm against, and my kids were a little frightened because it was quite aggressive. But then they started booing the servicemen who were First Nation servicemen, so like Aboriginal servicemen. That was racist at the end of the day. Now, that's not the point of today's conversation. I want to make a point that I was angry about it, and therefore decided to talk about it publicly. And so I went and put a post on Facebook, and if you haven't gone and seen it, you can go and see it. And it has, had 1,800 people comment or engage with it, and like hundreds and hundreds of comments. And so it's kind of blew up. But the biggest thing was actually had over 2,500 people shared it. And while that might seem good because they were sort of, the majority of them were supporting my message, what it did, which was really fascinating, is it took the air out of my opportunity to talk about the other things I want to talk about. And so this one message that I created, which I think needed to be said, and I'm very happy that I said it, it actually removed about a week's worth of opportunity to speak about a certain topic. It distracted my message for 7 days, and it may distract it for longer. We'll find out. But this distraction of energy thing keeps coming up. And what I've noticed is the consultants who are very focused on the message that they want to deliver, they're very focused on the thing that they want to talk about, they get the fastest results. We can say, oh, I want to work with these people and these people and these people. Like, for instance, I have a broad market of people I can speak to. Well, by not picking one to focus on, we're distracting ourselves with all these other opportunities. And so even that is a distraction. one of the other things that happened in my past is that I became very good in the technical space about helping technology connect with marketing. And so people started saying, well, can you help me with this project and this project and this project? And so these big opportunities where multi-million and sometimes even billion-dollar opportunities would come up where I'd be suddenly sequestered, and because I would say yes, to work on a project. And so in working on those projects, I took myself out of the market for 6 to 8 months. And in doing that, I lost momentum. I lost momentum on my message. I lost momentum on the people who were aware of what was going on with me. And I lost momentum on them considering my business. Interesting in marketing, there's awareness. People need to know you exist. So there's awareness, there's consideration. They need to consider whether you are an option that they want to work with. And there is decision. Now, the decision won't happen without consideration, especially in the consulting space. People need to consider you. They need to have time to consider you. So if you're taking yourself out of the market, if you're not communicating your message for a good amount of time, it removes that consideration. And this is how distraction gets in the way of so many consultants and business owners. And I see it happen constantly where two ways this happens. Either they're focusing on this and then they focus on that and then they go to this and then they go to that. And they don't spend time to complete the activity. In other words, position themselves effectively so the market knows them well. They've had time to consider them. They haven't allowed the market consideration time before they move on to something else. So every time they move around, people can't keep up. And so, interesting side point, I went to a conference about a month ago. And at that conference, a number of people said to me, hey, I see you're pretty much just working with consultants now. And I said, yeah, it's been 3 years since I made that decision. and so I've just been working with consultants for 3 years, no one else, just consultants, and they only just got the message. And so it shows you how long a message takes to actually get broad appeal or broad exposure. And so there are people in my world who are only now just becoming aware, not even considering, who already knew me, but are only getting into a consideration stage around the consulting side of stuff after 2 to 3 years. So if we distract ourselves with this opportunity, then that didn't work. So we go to this one. So we go to this one. So we go to this one, especially in a public forum, whether it's positioning or messaging, then we're not going to give people the consideration time to actually go, is this for me? Is this someone I want to raise my hand and talk to? Is this a person I should be working with? All right, we need to give them that consideration time. So that's one distraction, which is the lack of focus, the lack of niche. The other distraction is the one where a job opportunity comes along, or so to the point of what just happened in the last week. Off the back of this conversation, and it not quite going viral, but going viral-ish. I have had people coming out of the woodwork to not only connect with me, but offer me a position within their political party. All right. Interesting. Now, if I was to take those opportunities up, it would distract me from what I'm doing and the message I'm trying to communicate out there in the world, which is the message of if you have expertise, you can create a select consulting model, which enables you to have a business well over $600,000, which enables you to only work 4 days a week from anywhere in the world. Now, people are only starting to slowly get that message now because I'm starting to say it more often. Select consultant, becoming a select consultant, having a select consulting business, right? Using the select consulting business model. All right. What is select consulting? It's being selective about who you work with, about where you work and how you work, right? It's a leveraged model. But if I'm not saying that all the time, people don't have the opportunity to consider it. And so if I'm talking about this political party, or if I'm talking about this other thing, or I'm distracting myself with activities that don't allow me to communicate, then it's not going to enable that message to cut through. It is interesting too, working with a lot of new consultants. So people moving from a service space into consulting, that the biggest transition for them, or the biggest challenge in that transition, has certainly been the understanding that they're not delivering a service anymore. They're now facilitating consulting and mentoring. They're actually providing advice. And how are they going to do that in a way that it's going to be not having them stuck doing the work? Right. So that's that transition point. And so what I give them to help them make that transition is an expert framework. Now, there's a specific model we use for the expert framework, but the expert framework enables them to be able to communicate really effectively their value, the challenges that they help people solve, and who they solve them for. All right. So once you've got an expert framework, it becomes very easy to communicate. But when someone first makes their expert framework, and I was having this conversation in the Forge the other day, and if you don't know what the Forge is, the Forge Business Program is really for those consulting businesses or businesses of expertise who want to accelerate their results. They're ambitious and they want to actually create a bigger, faster, more engaged business now, working less. Maybe they're exiting the business. But the Forge is just for those ambitious people, whereas the Consulting Guild is more for those people who are working through the process of building up their consulting practice. It's for those people who have a consulting practice and they're wanting that continued development, but not at a place where they double or triple. All right. So there's the sort of distinction. But that expert framework that I give to people is often a new way of communicating. And so when I was talking to this person in the Forge the other day, they were asking me like, I'm trying to get my head around the model I've created, and I said, well, you're the expert, so you're the one who created it, and so you should know it. And so I realized that they've just created something new. So how would they know it? They've articulated this in a new way that's different from what they've articulated before. And then I've realized that what they've actually done is they've basically created a song. They've made music, and now they have to learn how to play it. Right. And I watched Get Back. There's a great, if you haven't watched it already, documentary on the Get Back album that was created by the Beatles, and it showed the Beatles putting it all together and how they brought in little elements, and they tried this and they tried that and they didn't like that, so they threw it out and they added more activities into making the songs, and then they ended up playing it on the roof. But what they had to do is just creating the song wasn't enough. The creating the music wasn't enough. They had to learn how to play it. They had to learn how to play it so they could perform it. And that's what the expert framework does. It allows you to have the song, it's written down. We now know the communication that's going to work effectively for the audience. But now we need to practice. Now we need to learn the music so we can actually perform it well when we're out there in the world. So that when we're in a conversation, it naturally comes up rather than us feeling that we're giving some sort of 4-bit pitch to somebody. We're not doing that. No, it's how we communicate. And so it's my expert framework, which is something that I had to have a lot of trouble to build because I designed it. Is basically this. We help consultants get clients. That is the result that we focus on first, because when they have those clients, they can then build in a more confident way. So there's so many positions after that, but we help them get clients to start with. And people who are not getting clients, there's usually 3 challenges they're experiencing. And I'm not saying you who's on the call, I'm saying these other people. They experience either they're a little stuck or they're unclear about what they should be doing, right? That's why they haven't created the business that they want. Potentially they've got some leads, but they're inconsistent. So inconsistent leads, maybe the leads are just coming from referrals, and so they're not creating any leads. Or they're stuck having coffee conversations, they're sending out proposals and people are not getting back to them, they're being ghosted. And so at the end of the day, they're not making enough sales. And so this is in my expert framework. This is how I communicate it. And then to show them how they can create the consulting business that gives them all the things that they want, it's really the opposite, which is to have a plan with clear next steps. So you're focusing, which is kind of the point of today's session. It's not to get distracted, but focused. And so in the Consulting Guild and in the Forge, so the Forge has sprints. So every 8 weeks, we create a sprint. So there's 6 specific steps that they will take to implement something in their sales and something in their business. And then in the Consulting Guild, when they join the guild at the moment, I'm helping them create a plan which helps them over the next 6 to 8 weeks anyway, right? So it gets them started. But that plan is clear next steps. You know specifically what you're going to do. So if you have clear next steps, then it's much easier to create momentum because you know what the things are. You know what the steps are. And so then we move to making sure that they get not just consistent leads, but consistent quality prospects. And the difference between a lead and a prospect is a lead is someone who could work with you. We've got their contact details, but we don't know if now is the right time. In other words, we don't have something specific to talk about. If you've got something specific to talk about, you've got a prospect. Yeah. So moving from leads to prospects, consistent quality prospects. If we can create consistent quality prospects for that business, they feel the momentum. And it's interesting. I know the path for most of these people, but they need to feel the path. Like doing the steps, you got to go, all right, how can I help them win? How can they start to feel the momentum? How can they start to feel the amount of people who are having conversations with them more? And that's how we create those consistent, it's a consistent pipeline of opportunity. And then finally, the model, and this is the biggest change for most people, especially if they've been in an employment situation or a service situation in the past, is being able to understand that the model is not about delivering a service and actually taking whatever work comes your way. It's about being selective and auditioning the prospects to see if this is someone I should be helping, if now is the right time. And so there's a selective process to that. And when you have a selective process, it makes not only are you more confident, but you're in a much better position to actually choose clients that can say yes and that you know that you can help. So if you've got questions around this, go to consultingquestions.com. If you're interested in the guild, you can actually go to the consultingguild.com, right? Guild is in Guild, the Consulting Guild. And so we help these people take these steps because if they have clear next steps, if they have consistent quality prospects, and if they have an auditioning process to bring people into their world, then they have that select consulting model, which enables them to work when they want. They can work 4 days a week. They can work 3 days a week. I only work 4 days a week myself. I take Wednesdays off. I take the weekend off. I spend it with my family. On the Wednesdays, I tend to do something for myself, whether that be, an artist date. I don't know if you've seen me talk about those, but it's really reconnecting with myself, my creativity by doing something new I haven't done before. Sometimes that's going to a gallery. Sometimes that's just going and sitting in my own in a park. But other times it's going full driving and it's going fishing. I do fly fishing. So it's doing things I enjoy doing. But that's where you take the time. So you can select when you work. You can select where you work, because when you're an expert at what you do, when people recognize that they need your expertise to solve certain problems and to get specific outcomes, then they'll work with you through this lens. They'll work with you through Zoom or whatever actual video streaming service you want to actually use. And they will have that conversation anywhere in the world. So I work with people, it's weird. I'm working with people in Scandinavia and Canada and the US, South Africa, in Asia, in different places. And I do it all from here because that's what I want to do. I choose to do it. Now, if you want to fly around the world, you can do that too, right? You can have that choice. But that's what's cool about having this select consulting model is it gives you those choices. And the way to get the model done, the way to have those choices in a way that you're going to pick and select the choices that are going to be the most benefit and the most leverage for you is to understand what is a distraction and what is not. So joining a political party at a point in time where you're accelerating the growth of your business is a distraction. And so I'm not going to be joining any political party. Thank you very much. Even though those requests are coming through based off the activity I just spoke about. And so other things, weird projects, special projects coming in off the side are going to be a distraction for you in creating the business you want. Now, you might later on want to just pick and choose individual projects, but when you do that, do know that you will reduce the amount of momentum you're creating in the market. You will take yourself out of the market for a certain period of time so that people don't have a chance to consider you and new people aren't aware of you. So the awareness, consideration time to allow the decision to happen is so key in a consulting business. And if you've got questions about it, put them into the chat, ask questions, and we can have that conversation. And also for those people who want to ask a question for a future episode, if you've got something specific, please do go to consultingquestions.com, and you can add your question there and I will read it out on the show. Until next time, my name is Russell Pearson. Stay passionate, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye for now.